Thank you, and thank you all for being here today. It's a great turnout. And this is perhaps the most important mayoral race in Austin history, given the upcoming changes to the city government, going to the 10-1, and also in light of our explosive growth over the past 5 years. United Way for Greater Austin is pleased to host a debate in which all the participants in the race take so seriously the issues facing Central Texans. I want to thank the debate host committee, and I particularly want to call out a big shout out to Balcones Resources, our presenting sponsor. You may have noticed that the response to this debate has been terrific. This theater is pretty much full, and I think a few people that might have been caught in some of that Austin traffic might be coming in the next few minutes. We actually have another theater full of folks that are watching on live streaming video. And we want to make them to feel a part of this whole event too, so we're going to give a big shout out to them. They can see us, so all right.
They start.
Oh yeah. No. All right, but look shape. They can see us, so all right. The rules of the debate are straightforward. Each candidate will have 60 seconds for opening comments and 30 seconds for closing. We'll be asking 5 questions to all of the candidates and 1 question tailored to each of them individually. They'll have 90 seconds to respond to every question. There will also be an opportunity for a limited number of rebuttals of 30 seconds, and those will be granted at my discretion. Our questions are intended to elicit each candidate's positions on issues of importance to all of Central Texas. I will now introduce each candidate in ballot order, after which they will have 60 seconds to make opening remarks. Todd Phelps is a native of Austin, a local business owner, a musician, and the founder of Texas Alternative Wind Energy. He is involved in environmental causes such as clean water and air initiatives. Mr. Phelps also has a long history of work in the arts and the film production industry. He is a member of the Screen Actors Guild. Mr. Phelps.
Well, hello. I did grow up here, and I went to Hill Elementary and Hyde Park Baptist High School, the University of Texas, and ACC. And I understand from my parents the work ethic that they instilled in me and to protect what's sacred. And what's sacred to me is the people of Austin, Texas, and there's a real affordability crisis. The people of Austin, Texas, for the last 15 years, the people that grew up here of all cultures have been pushed out. It's a great concern to me. It's one of my main reasons I'm in this race. I want to protect them as much as possible, what's left of them. And I want to sit down with each and every one of you, if there's time, and listen to your thoughts on how we can do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Mike Martinez, originally from Rockport, Texas, was a firefighter in East Austin and served as president of the Austin Firefighters Association from 2004 to 2006. He has served as an Austin City Council member for 8 years and is focused on issues including transportation, healthcare, and animal rights. Councilmember Martinez has served on Capital Metro's Board of Directors since 2007 and is currently the chair of that board. Councilmember Martinez.
Catherine, thank you so much for moderating this debate. I want to thank the Alamo Drafthouse and United Way Greater Austin as well, and all of you for taking time out of your busy days to be here. I really do appreciate the conversation that we're going to have today. I'm Mike Martinez, and I'm from Rockdale, Texas. But I got here as quick as I could in 1988. And I believe that Austinites deserve someone who's going to fight for the middle class and have a strong voice in the mayor's office. You know, for 22 years I served as an Austin firefighter and a city council member with the one thought in mind that no one gets left behind. And I'll continue to fight against corporations who seek tax incentives to make sure that they pay a fair wage and that they provide necessary benefits. I'll continue fighting against predatory lending practices via payday lenders that take advantage of the middle class. And I'll continue champion issues like equal pay for equal work whenever and wherever possible as a council member. Thank you, and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Councilmember Martinez. Randall Stephens has worked for American
No.
Airlines for the last 3 decades. Prior to that, he served our country in the United States Air Force as an aircraft technician. Mr. Stephens launched a local advertising website in 2009. Mr. Stephens.
Thank you, Catherine, and thanks to the United Way and all these great
We
organizations.
lost Mike.
for helping and the people here for putting this on today. It's a real honor to be here. I'm sitting with great people that have great
Turn up
visions.
the
Great ideas. We might have
speaker
different
right
ideas about how to get things done, but different ideas are what Austin's about. Inclusion is what Austin is about. We've been through immigration in my family. I understand the immigration issues, and I believe we have to have a pathway to citizenship. Many of our people here are contributing and working hard. I believe inclusion is what a Republican form of government is all about, even though I call myself a Blue Dog Democrat, and I am proud to be a citizen of Austin. It's not about red or blue, and I am here for Austin. I'm here for
Probably
you.
keep
Thank you very
going
much.
more.
Thank you,
Keep
Mr.
going more.
Stephens. Sheryl Cole is the first African-American woman to serve on Austin City Council, where she currently serves as Mayor Pro Tem. She earned her law degree from the University of Texas and has lived in Austin for over 25 years. She currently serves as a City of Austin representative for the Downtown Austin Alliance Board of Directors, the Lone Star Rail Policy Board, and the Cambo Transportation Policy Board. Mayor Pro Tem Cole.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine, for moderating this, and thank everyone for coming out, and a special thanks to United Way for putting this together. I am delighted to be here and running for mayor. Austin is booming, and it is on the rise, and that is because of the hard work of nonprofits such as United Way, the business community, and also the governmental entities. We have gotten here together. Of course, we still have challenges, but we can meet those challenges together. Austin is not a city that has to be run by a strong hand. It needs to be run by many hands, thousands of hands, working together to make improvements. And I want to be a part of those improvements.
Thank you. Steve Adler has lived in Austin for 35 years as a graduate of UT Law School. He served as Chief of Staff to State Senator Elliott Shapley, where he fought for increased public school funding, higher teacher salaries, and greater environmental protections. Mr. Adler has sat on and chaired the boards of the Anti-Defamation League, the Texas Tribune, Gen Austin, Breakthrough, Ballet Austin, and the Long Center. Mr. Adler.
Thank you. I've lived in Austin for 36 years, and I love this city. And I'm concerned because I think Austin is at a tipping point, and we need to try to protect and save Austin's soul. We need to be proactive, not reactive. We need to be more deliberative and thoughtful. We need to actually fix the highway congestion problem. We need to reclaim affordability in this city. We need to protect our environment and our neighborhoods. We need to redo how we do permitting. You know, I spent a lifetime negotiating common ground, battling for school kids at the legislature, protecting working families and workers and women from abuse in a courtroom. We can keep going as we have gone the last 8 years. And the same things will happen. Things won't get better, they'll get worse. Or we can actually look forward to a new day, do things in a new way, and choose to use this election for a new way forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now let's get started. Again, each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. We ready? Question number 1. United Way believes that everyone who works full-time in Greater Austin should be able to live in Central Texas. Do you agree with our position? And if so, as mayor, what is your plan to make sure Austin is affordable to all families? Starting in ballot order, Mr. Phelps.
Mr. Phelps.
Well, I think that when we offer incentives, we need to do some due diligence on people that have been here for a long time and give them some specialized relief. And if those tools aren't available, we need to lobby at the state level to make them available, or not lobby, but work, be a sounding cry to make that available, especially when you're doing tax and incremented financing tips and stuff like that. We're going to anticipate property value rises. We need to protect those people in the zones. That's one way. Another way would to be not to support initiatives and bonds that will push them out of town just by the fact that they cannot afford the tax increases. That's what we're looking at right now with the rail bond tax. And I do not support it.
Councilmember Martinez, do you agree that everyone who works full-time in Greater Austin should be able to live in Central Texas?
I do, Catherine, and as a council member, that's exactly the initiatives that we have worked so hard on at City Hall. I led an 18-month effort to change our economic incentive policies to ensure that when corporations ask for incentives and they bring their companies to town, that they establish a minimum wage of $11 an hour. And when they build construction projects for their new companies, that they provide prevailing wages and OSHA 10 safety training. The other ways, though, that we make Austin more affordable is by holding down our property tax rate, by ensuring that your property tax bill doesn't exponentially go up. We know that property values are rising at a very rapid pace, and we are doing everything we can. Over the last 4 years, each and every year, the council has either lowered or held your tax rate flat. Even though your bill may have gone up, it was that hard work that continues to make Austin a little more affordable. The third component, though, is providing that upward mobility, ensuring that an entry-level position is not the only one that you stay in when you join the workforce. Requiring companies to provide upward mobility and a path to higher wages is a critical component of our economic incentive policies. I'll continue those efforts as mayor. I'll continue to push for even a higher living wage than $11 an hour, as we have recently as a council.
Thank you, Councilmember Martinez. Mr. Stephens, as mayor, what is your plan to make sure Austin is affordable to all families?
Well, for one thing, politicians don't create jobs. And what we can do is remove roadblocks. But we also have an incentives plan that I believe should be retargeted to benefit the bringing in of a greater number of regional small business employers to occupy existing vacant real estate. Second, I believe that our growth plan, we should have a new growth ring on the Great Oak of Austin. We should develop, we should have some incentives that encourage development of housing along the corridor of 183 from north to south, from city limit to city limit. And we should create training programs and a single fusion point where a person, perhaps an indigent or someone who's down, can go in, be assessed by a properly motivated and trained city employee who becomes an advocate, gets them enrolled in state and federal funded programs that are out there, like the medical assistance program, that can get someone in to see a primary care physician and avoid an expensive emergency room visit, saving potentially tens of millions of dollars for county taxpayers. Relieving congestion on the highways would be a big help, because as congestion increases, as we develop with, say, the Innovation Zone, which is northeast downtown, more low-wage jobs and research laboratories and that sort of thing, those people have to get there. They can't afford to live there.
Just going down the line.
So let's develop that second growth ring. Let's develop business in Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Stephens. Mayor Pro Tem Cole, you share with us your position on affordability.
Yes, I think Austin should be affordable for the average family, and especially someone who works full-time in Austin. I led the effort to put the affordable housing bonds back on the ballot after they failed in 2012. That was a difficult task, but one that was very much needed and done through collaboration with the community, especially the nonprofit sector. We came together as a group, and everybody realized the need in Austin for affordable housing, and we went back out to the voters, and they saw what could happen when we actually gave people more information and a voice. And I'm glad that we were able to put a dent in that very big issue facing Austin. Also, I think it's important that we work on the employment aspects of it. Councilman Martinez has said a little bit about this, and I've supported him, and as he's led on many of those initiatives and done some of my own, which is recently passing a resolution to make sure that part-time employees at the city also receive $11 an hour. I think we need to increase the wages for our average employees, because that is a fundamental aspect of making Austin more affordable. And I also think, finally, that we need to support small businesses. They make up approximately 70% of the jobs in Austin, and we have a small business and development office, and I've worked with other council members to strengthen it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Cole. Mr. Adler.
You know, people say that there are 110 people that are moving to Texas every day, and that's a net number. It's not right. There are 150 people moving to Austin every day, and there are 40 people leaving, and we need to talk about those 40 people. You know, we have an African-American population in this city that's decreasing. We have gone from being the most affordable city in the city of Austin to the most expensive city. And that doesn't happen by accident. It happens when the city makes choices like this council has made to spend $3 billion on a biomass fuel plant and a water treatment plant, both of which we don't use and we don't need. We need to make smarter choices. I've advocated a homestead exemption for homeowners. I've advocated fairness on drainage fee for apartment renters, free rides on Metro for our seniors and our disabled. We need to make sure that every decision that we make as a city government first passes the filter. How is it going to affect how much it costs to live in this city? We can do better than we've done, and we have to do better if we're going to maintain the diversity in this city that drives who we are and keeps us special. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adler. Okay, we're going to move on to question number 2. According to research, only half of our community's children are entering kindergarten prepared for school success. School readiness is a strong predictor of later academic achievement and positive social adjustment. Early intervention can be very effective in closing the readiness gap. It is United Way for Greater Austin's position, supported by economists, that early intervention is the best use of public social service dollars because of the excellent return on investment. Do you agree with our position? And what do you think the mayor's role should be in supporting early learning for our city's youngest residents? Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you so much for the question. I 100% agree. You know, we don't create dropouts in their teenage years. We create dropouts at the age of 4, by not providing them that early childhood education to be prepared for entry into kindergarten and first grade. It is our responsibility as a community, not just as mayor, as a community, to understand that impact and that issue that we face. One of the opportunities the mayor has is the joint committee between the county, AISD, and the city of Austin. Arguably the most powerful committee that we have. The county judge, the mayor, and the AISD school board president sit in the same room and talk about policy initiatives. But yet we don't bring them back to our respective bodies in that same form and ask for votes moving forward to create the progress that we need. Because of the education funding formula that exists today, 50% of every tax dollar that you send into AISD goes to the state and then ultimately to another school. It is time that the city of Austin and the citizens of Austin have a conversation about, should we take our own general fund and sales tax dollars and support things like pre-K education? Because I think the economic impact is just as great as any other investment that we make with those two sources of funding. That's what I'll do as mayor, and I'll continue to fight for our young children that need our help right now.
Thank you, Councilmember Martinez. Mr. Stephens.
Well, I have a philosophy in life and business that we should always look to helping the least among us. And Head Start programs and early learning programs are definitely a must for our attention and continued support at every level. So I support the position of the United Way.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Cole.
I served on the committee of the joint subcommittee of the city, county, and school district, and it was one of the most fascinating experiences that I had as a council member to actually be able to plan for the entire city with the other governmental bodies. I think it's imperative that the mayor use that committee and other committees to set a vision for early childhood development. We have an early childhood council that makes recommendations to us, and I've actually taken some of those recommendations to council, especially the ones that many of you know involve funding of actually early childhood development, and I'm very proud of those initiatives that are brought forward, and I think that the city has a very prominent role in helping the school district as we realize that there are not 5 entities involved, but there's only one tax bill, and we all have to come together to make our city precious and unique.
Thank you. Mr. Adler.
You know, not only is the statistic that you mentioned, 50% of kids not ready for kindergarten when they enter, but only 13% of our underprivileged kids are entering kindergarten ready. That's a huge problem because there is no better investment that we can make than pre-K in this city. And I have never understood why it is that education is not a higher issue on the priority list for our city officials. In fact, why it's never really seemed to be on the priority list at all. For me, education would be one of the top 3 or 4 priorities of the mayor's office. We can do a lot more, working with a lot of great programs that are happening in the city, but we can make them larger and more effective. The mayor can use his power to convene and the power of the bully pulpit to set a community conversation. We need to work not on the formula, but on the weights that are used, which don't fund us adequately. You know, and the city working together with the school districts could actually work their tax rates so that taxpayers in the city don't pay any more taxes, but there's actually more money in our community to be spent. We can do better with this priority by actually making it a priority of the mayor's office. Thank you.
Mr. Phelps.
Yeah, absolutely, we can do better. As far as helping prior to kindergarten, I think that the mayor could champion an outreach program that would lead in offering some early curriculum ideas and for lower income and single parents, some real hands-on guidance with the passion that people have for a political campaign. Actually get out there into people's doors, let them know about with some real solid program. Now, I don't know about that, but I know exactly where to go to, and that would be my mom, since she has a PhD in education administration. So I would reach out to her and the professionals and people that know a lot more about it, but I would definitely want to emphasize passion to get the information to the folks. That's the number one thing, because if they don't know how to do it, where it's available, it's not going to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. All right, we're going to go into question 3, which is a little bit related to question 2, but actually is a slightly different topic. So here we go. Our position at United Way for Greater Austin is that child care is an important part of Austin's infrastructure for economic development. We believe that every family in Austin should be able to have access and to afford high-quality child care. Without reliable child care, many people can't work and contribute to the economy. Some cities, such as Portland, Oregon, provide incentives to employers for offering child care support for their employees. Other cities, such as St. Paul, Minnesota, use public dollars to create low-cost child care options for families in high-need neighborhoods. Do you agree that child care is an important part of Austin's infrastructure for economic development? And what are some of the ways our city government can increase the availability, quality, and affordability of child care in our community? Mr. Stephens.
You know, as with insurance programs, employers have incentives, have tax incentives for creating insurance for their employees. I don't see why we shouldn't be able to provide those services, child care services, in the same fashion, or at least the cost of bringing in specialists into a work environment or a place where you can bring your child who's pre-K and give some attention during the workday. So I would say that the city should join with other cities in the state and lobby federal officials for that type of legislation to enable the tax code to give us that sort of type of benefit.
Mayor Pro Tem Cole, what are some of the ways our city government can increase the availability, quality, and affordability of child care in our community?
Well, I always say that I went to City Hall to rest because I have 3 boys. So I believe in child care, and I think it should be available to every person, not only because of the economic benefit, but purely your sanity. I'd like to say the role that I think the city can play is a big one, especially in terms of thinking about what we should be able to offer our own employees. After all, we have 12,000 employees, and often we forget that when we're passing ordinances, not to just try to pass them for the rest of the city, but to think about what we can do at home as an example. And I've tried to do that with pay equity resolution that actually worked to actually increase the pay equity of women, because as we make more women prosperous, we help with child care and their ability to pay for it. And that's the primary way that I think we can do that. The other ways I think we can do it is also partnering with nonprofit agencies that actually provide child care and have them come through our social service contract process.
Thank you. Mr. Adler?
I believe that child care in this city is an important part of our infrastructure, just like roads are part of our infrastructure. There are at least 3 real important reasons why we need to lead with child care. First, it's good for the child. Second, if we provide child care, we actually provide people the opportunity to train for better jobs so that they can better provide for their families. And then the third reason is actually taking those jobs and providing for families. You know, the county contributes to child care. Why doesn't the city contribute? We should be. And we should be contributing in ways that go beyond financial ways. We should be using the mayor's office as a bully pulpit, the power to convene again, to bring the providers and the agencies in the city that are participating in doing great programs, but we need to magnify those programs. We need to work on helping those agencies increase salaries and increase training, and to work with retention for the instructors and teachers in child care. There are a lot of things that we should be doing. We should be using the mayor's office to rally not only the people in the nonprofit community, but also the philanthropic community, because there are a lot of dollars in this city that should be going to causes like this. Things like pre-K and things like child care are so important to this city, and they should be a priority in the mayor's office.
Mr. Phelps, we know about your mother, so...
Well, I think that I would take the $4.5 billion from the Adler-supported rail tax bond and put it towards child care infrastructure and let the philanthropists build the choo-choo train.
Councilman Martinez, I know you're going to have a response to that, and to articulate your own position on child care.
I completely agree with United Way's position. In fact, we've already worked on much of these issues. So, as I briefly mentioned earlier, the rewrite of the economic incentive policies, there's actually a category that provides for a higher incentive if you provide on-site daycare. And much like we've done at Capital Metro, we actually created an on-site daycare for Capital Metro employees, but opened it up to the public as well. And we found out to be well received and one of the best quality daycares that we have in East Austin. I think those programs show that they can provide proven success, and that we can expand that also to the city.
Thank you. All right. Question number 4. Research supports, and it is our position at United Way for Greater Austin, that participation in high-quality programs outside of the classroom results in the improvement of children's work-study habits, stronger feelings of engagement, increased self-esteem, and declines in negative risk-taking behavior. Cities such as Boston, Philadelphia, and Chicago boast robust systems for coordinating out-of-school time and other critical support services for students because of active leadership from the mayor's office. Yet many middle school students in Central Texas do not have access to high-quality after-school programs, particularly in the city limits. Do you agree that high-quality programs outside the classroom are critical for all children in Austin? And if so, as mayor, what are your plans to ensure that every child in Austin, no matter their economic status or race, has access to high-quality after-school programs? Mayor Pro Tem Cole.
I started my work in public service in the PTA. I was a PTA president at Lee Elementary. All 3 of my boys went there. I am a big believer in after-school programs and have had direct experience with the benefits of arts education and athletic education. I don't think there's much of a higher calling that the mayor could do in terms of encouraging the city to focus on education and after-school care, probably second only to early childhood development. It makes a difference for our entire city and this generation and the one to come.
Thank you. Mr. Adler.
You know, all the questions that we've had here so far have dealt with children. And I think it's important to understand and to pause for a second about why. Our economy is dependent on a strong and healthy and vibrant middle class. We need to make sure that the jobs that are coming into this city support the middle class, and we train people in the middle class to take those jobs. But we're only successful in doing that to the degree to which people are here in this city that are ready and able to step up and take those jobs. And that's why school is so important. That's why preschool and kindergarten is so important. And the other program that the United Way does, the OCT programs, the out-of-school time programs, are a part of that. Those are the programs that deal with the whole child. Those are the programs that deal with academic achievement and improve academic achievement. Those are the programs that help us with prevent drug abuse and with teenage pregnancy. So that's important, and these things should be priorities of the city. And the mayor's office, again, should be working with the philanthropic community we have in this town and with the nonprofits. We should be working to take the programs we have, including the United Way programs, and make them bigger and make them stronger, because that's the way that you champion the middle class in this city.
Thank you, Mr. Adler. Mr. Phelps, what is your position on high-quality programs outside the classroom?
I think they're great. I used to participate when I was younger. But I think that we need to make sure that obviously that the funds are there, that they're available for these programs, that the transportation options are there, obviously that they have bus service either provided by AISD or another entity. Mike knows more about that than me, actually. But yeah, 100% I agree, and I think that we need to make sure that the money's there by not wasting money on frivolous things. Once again, you know, the water treatment plant and bonds that don't make sense.
Councilmember Martinez.
I really appreciate the question, Catherine. You know, nothing speaks better to taking care of school-age children than providing them with those after-school programs that are sorely necessary. When you talk about, I know at least in the case of Boston, Mayor Menino has done an incredible job. He really has. But it's a different form of government. Mayor Menino gets to hire the superintendent and actually governs over the school board budget. So I think there are opportunities, certainly, that Austin's mayor can take advantage of. But you have to look at the powers of the office of the mayor and the form of governments that exist in those cities. We today, at budget work session, all day today for 7 hours, talked about how we're going to restore funding, 21st Century Learning Program that was cut by the TEA this June to the tune of $5 million for Central Texas. There's no other source of funding. The school board is facing a $20 million shortfall. So we as a city council are doing everything we can with this current budget process to try to restore those funding cuts, because we know they are vital and critical to the success of our children. And so when you talk about priorities, you can't, as Mr. Adler has proposed, you can't propose a 20% homestead exemption that disproportionately benefits the wealthiest in our community and say that you're going to figure out how to fund these sorely needed programs. We need to help the middle class who need our help. We don't need making proposals that help the wealthiest in our community who arguably don't need the assistance.
The time is now for rebuttal. Mr. Adler.
The 20% homestead exemption is an important policy, and we should adopt it just like Travis County has, and the city of Dallas, and the city of Houston, and the city of Fort Worth. The lowest 20% of our population, the burden on that group is 4 times as great for property tax than the top 1%. We have 200,000 people living in homes from the median home value and below. We have 3,500 homes in this city that are over $1 million. The property tax exemption is something that delivers to people who need it the most. I cannot tell people, again, who are losing their home that we have a tool and we're not going to use it.
Mr. Martinez. Councilmember Martinez, excuse me.
Again, it is a proposal that, one, it has not been explained to us how you fund it. Either he's going to raise your property tax rate or he's going to cut city services. So when you talk about priorities and you talk about creating governmental budget, it is really important to understand exactly how you're going to pay for a $36 million proposal that benefits the wealthiest the most in our community.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Stephens, back to you.
Without naming some candidates, I'd like to say that the concept of
of putting a fixed cost 20% or any percent of tax rebate to the consumer in a boom time. We're in an upcycle right now where Austin is booming. Cycles happen in the economic world. It is true. 2009 was not a year to open a web development company. I know I had to lay 3 people off, and it hurt. I know that pain. And I know what it takes to start and run a business. I've made money and I've lost it. I'll make it again. But the point is that we need to find efficiencies in government. We'll bring in some of the elements of redeveloping organizational management within the city that we use in business. Use the concepts the late W. Edward Deming introduced to the Japanese in the 1950s. The Japanese took those lessons well, and we learned in the 80s when everything was made in Japan. But we also learned that we can overcome any problem. We can design around any of these problems. We can give rebates based upon the amount or the percentage of cost savings to the taxpayer after programs are implemented that we quantify. The following year, give rebates back through our institutions like Austin Energy and the water bill, the water service that we provide to our citizens. And once we've quantified that, take that back to the taxpayer and the homeowner.
Thank you. All right, question number 5. We're hoping to spice this up just a little bit more, okay? All right, so we're going to ask each candidate a unique question tailored to his or her campaign platforms. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to provide an answer. Mr. Adler, Mayor Pro Tem Sheryl Cole has committed to increasing our community's social ties to one another. And as she says, raise all voices by embracing our city's diversity. How will you address diversity and make sure all voices are heard?
Austin is a very diverse city with a lot of personalities and a lot of communities. But we're also a very siloed city because those communities don't work together. I've spent 20 years trying to figure out how to bridge those communities with lots of organizations in town. And I think that the 10-1 system we have is a gift to the city because I think that's what's going to bring new leaders and new communities to the table for the very first time. And I think we need to structure new government in a way very different from the way government works today. So that government on January 6th doesn't look like government did on December 15th. And we need to take the advantages and the opportunities that come and will come from having new communities sitting at that table to expand the communications, to build collaborations and communications across communities. Because we're going to find out in a very real sense that we have to work together in order to save Austin. And I think that in order to save our community, in order to preserve the diversity that we have in our city. And I look forward to it because I think that we are going to have a unique opportunity, a once-in-a-generation opportunity to actually remake government culture in this city with this 10-1 system. And I am excited to be part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adler. Mr. Phelps, Mike Martinez says he should be mayor because he is best suited to solve our transportation crisis in Austin. What in your skill set makes you better suited to deal with Austin's transportation issues?
Because I was supporting rideshare for the last 2 years while he was blocking it with another member of council from going to a vote. And from an affordability standpoint, if rideshare companies like Uber and Lyft are allowed to do business freely in Austin, then the competition will drive the price down. I also have some experience with some kinetic energy solutions, and we've talked about things like above ground, autonomous, non-beholden route transport that could be started downtown with a east-west nexus privately funded, much cheaper than some of the proposed ideas. But once again, rideshare, he's blocking it. And to affordability, just real quick, artistic communities are hurt when you don't pass along the property tax exemption. I'm for a 20% residential homestead property tax exemption, but I want to start looking at extending that into rental properties and working with the state to do so. And I don't want to wait 4 years to phase it in. I want to do it right now.
Councilman Martinez, an opportunity for a rebuttal.
We absolutely have a major transportation crisis in Austin. And that is exactly what we've done to save Capital Metro over the last 4 years, to turn that agency around so that we can have this next conversation about whether or not we support Proposition 1 and include a multimodal option in that proposition to provide urban rail and road improvements that are sorely needed. I absolutely support ride sharing 100%. We have to have a conversation, though, about the regulatory environment and how it fits into our existing regulations because of the cab industry that currently exists as well.
Okay, all right, coming right back to you here.
Okay.
Steve Adler says he should be mayor because he has the best skill set to lead our city's new form of city council and lay the foundation for the next decade of sustainable growth. Does a new form of government require a mayor with a new skill set?
I think it's just about leadership, and obviously Steve has demonstrated leadership, and I commend him. My understanding is he's been a tremendous leader on the board of Ballet Austin and other nonprofits, and it's to be commended. But being mayor is something that's quite different, and I believe that some experience and institutional knowledge does go a long way in terms of this new form of government coming in. 9 out of 11 new council members will be brand new. We need someone that's going to be able to help those council members be successful in representing their district, but also understanding that we have broader policy issues as a city that they must also remain focused on, because they don't just represent their district. They're going to represent all of Austin as well.
Mayor Pro Tem Cole, do you believe that the new form of government requires a different skill set from the mayor?
I think the challenges that we're going to have are pretty much the same, whether it's affordability, transportation, and water. It's all about the style of government. We don't need someone who says that we need a bully pulpit. We don't need bullies. We need people who can get along with people, bring people together, and raise up all of our voices.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Cole. Mr. Stephens, if elected, Steve Adler says he will make education a cornerstone of his administration, including advocating for universal pre-K for all 3- and 4-year-olds in Austin. How will you address school readiness if elected mayor?
Well, I support Mr. Adler's position on the pre-K programs, and I do believe that we also need to work with our organizations in the community that have a tax-exempt status, that charitable organizations can also play a role and do play a role in this community. So supporting educational programs, after-school programs to help students who might need, for instance, let's think of a child I met, not a child, a young man I met who was bullied in high school recently during a community conversation on mental health care. He had been diagnosed and had to have some treatment. He had to move to Austin from another nearby city. Very inspiring young man, speaks well, and now is attending Baylor because he got some help. I believe in a safe place after school where you can study and find a tutor. And if the city can't afford that tutor, or the taxpayers don't want to pay for that tutor, we can look to those organizations and look to our benefactors and our greater sense of good in this community. This is a community of inclusion. This is a community that answered the phone when my wife wanted to come here and train in medical residency when Dallas didn't. They didn't like foreign medical graduates. Austin is a city on the move, and I believe that by supporting our children, we're going to protect the great nature and soul of this city, and we're going to have a future we can be proud of.
Thank you, Mr. Stephens. Mayor Pro Tem Cole, Randall Stephens is committed to taking special interests out of City Hall and the mayor's office, and says that if elected, he will be the people's voice. How will you address special interests at City Hall?
I think it's really important when you sit in that seat that you never forget your oath. And you never can predict how anyone is going to vote because of the oath that you take. And I think the oath that you take says that you will look out for the interests of the entire city of Austin. And I think it's important that the mayor stands that ground and sets that example by having relationships that are above board and transparent with all of the special interests that come before City Council.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to question 6. Now, we are well into the election season at this point. The candidates and their teams have been out in the community, hard at work, communicating their various positions. There's been a number of debates already, and one of the candidates told me I think there's gonna be like 26 more. Not as big as this one, though. And not as special as you might have waited to be. All right. And this is when it can be really tough to be a candidate. You have to have some thick skin. Candidates, what is the one thing that has been said about you during this election season that makes you angry? And if anger is too strong of a word, it makes you mildly perturbed. And would you like to refute it? All right, thinking. Mr. Phelps, what's made you angry or perturbed, and what would you like to refute that's been said about you?
Well, everybody's been pretty kind to me. If you want to know what makes me angry, I can tell you that all of the insiders to the left of me do have a tool to provide property tax relief to native Austinites, and it's called not supporting the rail tax. Mr. Adler, Ms. Cole, Mike all do. I do not. And that just, if you say you don't want to give them the tool's right there. And please, give it to them.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Martinez, what's been said about you during this election season that's made you angry or mildly perturbed? How would you like to respond to that?
You know, my mom always told me, if it's not true, it shouldn't bother you. So you have to live by that rule when you're in politics. If it's not true, it shouldn't bother you. So I don't have anything to refute, but I have nothing to apologize for either, and I won't apologize for being a champion for middle-class Austinites and for fighting against special interests like big businesses that are trying to seek tax incentives at the advantage of the middle class in our community, and I'll continue to do that today.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stephens?
I'm not mad at anybody. I just thank the Almighty I was born in a country where we can come up here and exchange ideas, and I can find myself sitting up here not with opponents but with co-applicants for a terrific job, which I think would be the best job in the world. Austin is a terrific place, and frankly, nobody said a thing that I'm upset about. I also don't want to build that particular plan, and I have reasons not to build that train. It's going to shut down traffic. It's absolutely going to stop traffic every 5 minutes. It's a different system. I know from the aviation business and from that's large business. Every time you add a complex technical system to the mix, it's going to cost more money.
Mayor Pro Tem Cole.
Austin is booming, and when I went on council, we were in a recession. It took the hard work of lots of organizations, including United Way and the nonprofit and the business section and the governmental section, working to figure out how to turn it around. It is not anything that I'm mad about, but discussions that say we stay till 3 o'clock in the morning because we are disorganized when we are actually there because we are listening to citizens, and the citizens that actually spend their time waiting for their 3 minutes to talk to us, and the citizens who are involved in various boards and commissions and task forces and all the work that they do to bring to us suggestions and ideas that we try to put into place. We work with the city as a whole to try to improve it. I think it's important to recognize that effort, and I have been somewhat taken aback by some of the statements as if everything that we have done has been wrong.
Thank you. Mr. Adler, what's been said about you during this election season you might like to refute?
You know, my brother and I were the first in our family to go to college, and I went to college on a scholarship. I came to UT Austin because it was the cheapest law school in the country, and they gave me a scholarship so I could afford it. I spent my first decade doing civil rights law for workers. I spent 8 years over 4 sessions at the Texas legislature, almost volunteering as chief of staff and general counsel to push an agenda for working class people. You know, my parents died when I was in my 20s. I understand what it means both to work hard and also to have people that will help you and give you a hand. I have spent my entire life trying to help the middle class, to provide access to people, to stand in the doorway of opportunity that I have been fortunate enough to be able to walk through, and just prying it open and keeping it open with my shoulders so that as many people as possible can walk through that door as well. Everything that I am doing in this race and every policy decision, including the 20% homestead exemption that provides the greatest burden relief for the lowest income among us, arguing for changing the fairness of the drainage fee for apartment renters, Everything that I am doing is designed to support the middle class, the working people in the city, and to provide access and opportunity for people.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're going to lighten things up just a little bit. All right? I'm kind of going to go off script with a little extra time. This is an important issue. It's an important issue to many people in Austin. The redevelopment of the old airport, it has been a national phenomenon. You visit other cities and people talk about the redevelopment. It's just a model. And I'm happy to say, and proud to say, that earlier this summer I moved into that redevelopment. I moved into the MUELLER development as mayor. Mr. Phelps, how will you pronounce that development?
Mueller.
Councilmember Martinez.
Miller.
Mr. Stephens.
Miller.
Mueller.
Mueller.
All right. I think we've seen some important distinctions in the position of our mayoral candidates on an issue that's very important to me, so people know where the heck I live when I tell them. And we needed that guidance. So there you have it. Okay. Now listen, we're gonna move on to closing remarks. So it's time to get serious again. And we're going to go in reverse order from our opening remarks. Each candidate will have 30 seconds for their comments. So, Mr. Adler, please make your closing remarks.
You know, it wasn't that long ago that it was easy to drive around Austin and it was affordable to live here. But decisions by this council, including $3 billion for the biomass plant and water treatment plant that we don't need now, we're not using, actually have an impact on you. You have to ask yourself, what have the incumbents done to make your life more affordable? The middle class needs someone that will actually champion their cause, and I'm asking for your support.
Mayor Pro Tem Cole, please make your closing remarks.
I said that I got my start in the PTA, and I went on from there to actually serve on several boards, including Planned Parenthood, Communities in School, and the Urban League. All of those boards dealt with the issues that really also face the United Way and much of the city, working for the middle class and helping the least of us be able to afford to live in Austin. I'm very proud of the work that I've done on affordable housing and also the health and human services initiatives that I have brought. I'm asking to be your mayor because I want us to lift up all voices and not just one.
Thank you. Mr. Stephens.
The current city council has just the other day on the 28th sent home a lot of people who wanted to speak to council about a solar issue, and then they were going to table it, but they voted on it anyway the other night. Let's not be disingenuous. And also the current city management and council have bound road construction projects to the notion of a urban rail system that you may or may not vote for. I'm betting you won't. But if you don't, it's not too late, because the political critical mass in this region has grown a lot in the last 10 years, and we can find the funding by including everyone in the Regional Mobility Authority.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez, your closing remarks.
Thank you all again for being here and for this forum and debate. Thank you to Alamo Drafthouse and Tim League as well. This race really is about who will fight for the middle class the most and who has that proven track record. I'm proud to have been endorsed by the Central Labor Council, which represents tens of thousands of working middle-class Austinites. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Workers' Defense Action Fund, and most recently by my former organization, the Austin Firefighters Association, who I'm honored to have their endorsement. It is a testament to who will fight for the middle class in this community.
Thank you. Mr. Phelps.
Austin was recently in Business Insider magazine for being one of the most top 16 impoverished cities. We've had an 86% increase in poverty since 2001. I know because I've been here since then. I'm excited about the future of Austin, but we can't continue this way. We can't have insiders running for mayor that have the same people on their staffs that created the affordability crisis. I understand what's sacred in Austin. My friends are sacred from all communities here. We don't want them pushed out. Please join me. Thanks.
Thank you to all of the candidates. Like all of us at United Way for Greater Austin, we clearly care about our city's future and its well-being. I want to thank again the host